Welcome to ManageEngine Firewall Analyzer's free training part 1. First, we'll have an introduction where we'll discuss a typical network infrastructure and why firewalls are essential to network security. Next, we'll address a key question. So that is, why should a security admin use Firewall Analyzer? From there, we'll then cover how to pull the rules and configurations from your firewall device into Firewall Analyzer. After fetching these rules, we'll then explore Firewall Analyzer's capabilities, including rule management, configuration monitoring, and finally, we'll talk about compliance and audit reporting. So as shown on the screen, we have a typical network infrastructure consisting of a router, WAN, LAN, and multiple endpoint devices. Additionally, we also have on-premise servers like the Active Directory server, which manages access to various network resources. So at the heart of it all is the firewall, which acts as a gatekeeper. But hackers can break into any of these devices, especially firewalls, because they are the core of any network security strategy. Once a hacker breaches the firewall, they can access your entire infrastructure. So today, our focus is specifically on firewalls and how Firewall Analyzer can enhance their management. So now let's address a critical question. What makes firewalls vulnerable and why use Firewall Analyzer? So the problem lies in the firewall misconfigurations, especially those that are already known but not fixed. And then we have the outdated firewall rules that become easy target for hackers to exploit. So this makes firewall monitoring and threat intelligence a top priority that must be done regularly. Then we have the network security admins who are always in a battle with hackers. So to win, they need a proactive approach that combines monitoring with rapid response and recovery. Lastly, there are regulatory mandates not only ensure compliance, but they can also cover common security loopholes. So now let's look at ManageEngine's Firewall Analyzer. So Firewall Analyzer is a policy management and a configuration reporting tool. This helps with firewall rule management, configuration monitoring and backup, log analysis, alarm management, and compliance management. Now, also let's look at the basic installation requirements for Firewall Analyzer. So Firewall Analyzer can be installed on a Windows or Linux system. All the syslogs received by Firewall Analyzer are by default stored in a PGSQL database. However, you can also configure them to be stored in your MS SQL database. So the disk space and the RAM mentioned here are the minimum requirements, and they are scalable depending on the number of devices being analyzed and sending log information. So now on the screen, you can see the prerequisite ports that need to be free and the respective protocols that will be used. So first we have the SSH and SCP on port 22, and then we have TFTP on port 69, and then Telnet on port 23, and then we have the listener port that is 1514, where you'll forward all your syslogs for Firewall Analyzer to generate syslog-based reports. So now that we have a brief understanding of firewall's features and prerequisites, let's understand how to fetch firewall rules and configurations. The first step is to configure your firewall device to send syslogs to a default listener port, that is the UDP port 1514. So once the logs are received, you can then analyze them, manage alerts using Firewall Analyzer. Step 2 involves creating a credential profile for the firewall device. So this can give you access to detailed reports. So these first two steps will be discussed in detail during our next session on May 15th. Today's focus is on the third step, which involves fetching the firewall rules and configurations, adding the device to the system, and generating reports for rule management, configuration monitoring, and compliance. So actually, you can fetch firewall rules and configuration in two ways. The first method is by using API or CLI protocols, and the second one is by directly uploading a rule file or a configuration file to the firewall analyzer. Let's discuss the fast method in detail. So the API or CLI fetching is available for most firewall vendors, and the list of these supported vendors will be shared with you at the end of the session, or you can also find it on our website. So on the screen, you can see an example of adding device information using the API protocol of a firewall, and you can also see the firewall analyzer's UI. So let's look at this example in the product UI, for which I will be taking you to our product. Yes. So here we'll go to the product, and here in settings, we'll go to firewall server, and under that we'll click credentials. So here you can see all the device rules listed and their status as success. So to add a new one, select add. Then you will select a device, choose the fetch option. So here I am choosing API for the Meraki device, and I'll provide some details like the web server URL, the token value. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to choose the sample values. And after that, we'll click on validate. So once the validation is successful, your credentials will be added to the firewall analyzer. So this was a fast method that we saw. And for the second method, in the same window, I'm going to choose the file option. So this allows you to import the rule or your configuration files. So the rule file is a simple text file where each rule is listed that has the rule name and description. And optionally, it will also contain the rule hash value, which will be separated by commas. Then you can manually export the configuration and rule files from your device into Firewall Analyzer. Once you have these files, upload them to Firewall Analyzer and add the device to the system. So this is how the fetching through file happens in Firewall Analyzer. So now going back to the presentation. So then, yes, this was a file configuration that we were talking about. And the third method is adding devices without any syslogs. So this method requires only the device's IP address and name. So let me again show you in the UI. So for that, we'll go to settings, and under discovery, we choose add device. And here you can see an option add device manually without syslog. So here again, you can choose a vendor, enter the necessary details, and the device will be added automatically. But if you wish to use features like rule management and compliance reports, check this option, and you will need to provide the device credentials and your login details for security reasons. Finally, once you click on validate and the validation is successful, you will be able to add the device to Firewall Analyzer. So that's how we configure files in the Firewall Analyzer. Now going back to the presentation, once the firewall rules and configurations are fetched, you can access 3 key reports. The first one is a rule management report. The next one is a configuration management report, and then the compliance and security audit reports. So we'll explore all of these reports in greater detail through use cases in the next part of the session on May 15th. So for now, let's see how to put Firewall Analyzer to work in a real life scenario. So the fast use cases, let's assume we have a new security admin called Jim. So Jim is working for a company and he is new to a company. So there have been a lot of network security issues reported in that particular company. So the company has asked Jim to do these things. So they want him to optimize the firewall's rules and policies, monitor the changes that are being made to the firewall's configuration, schedule a periodic configuration backup, and finally submit a detailed security audit and compliance reports. So this is our first use case. So let's see the challenges that Jim faces in achieving each of these use cases. The first task for Jim is to optimize the policies. So to do this, Jim has already these challenges. First thing, Jim is new to the company and the company is old, meaning that there are at least like 1,000 rules for him to review, and he has to review each rule manually due to lack of visibility. There might be many duplicate or unused rules, and more than one security admin would have written these rules. So it already made the process complicated and the rules would be highly unoptimized. In addition to all of this, any new rule that Jim could write can negatively affect the existing rule set. So doing all of this manually will take a lot of time and effort, increasing the chance of human error. But let's see how Jim can use Firewall Analyzer to overcome these challenges. So here we look at the rule management feature of Firewall Analyzer, which will help Jim. So the first feature under rule management is the policy overview. So the policy overview report provides visibility into all the rules that have been written on the firewall. So you can filter these rules according to allowed or denied rules, inbound or outbound rules, inactive rules, logging disabled rules, and overly permissive rules. So you can also download and analyze these list of rules. So with this feature, Jim can gain clear visibility into the existing set of rules across all of his firewalls. So to show this feature in working, let me again take you to the product. So to access this feature, you'll just go to rule management and click on overview. And then you can select a firewall. So for this, I'm going to choose FortiGate. Yes. So you can see all the rules that are classified as total rules, allowed rules, denied rules, etc. And if Jim wants more visibility, he can click on any one of the classification, for example, and understand how each rule is configured. So these classification include their individual metrics, providing Jim with clear visibility into the rule set. So if Jim wants to download this information in an offline format, that is also possible. So here he can choose either to export it as a CSV, or download as PDF, or export it as an Excel file. So again, in the same window, Jim will also have visibility on the status of security rules, say the object details, NAT rules, and the excluded rules list. So now that Jim has solved the visibility issue, let's go back to the presentation. And the next feature under rule management is policy optimization. So let's look at how policy optimization will help Jim. Since multiple security admins have written the rules, they haven't been reviewed in a long time. There are many anomalies and overly permissive rules affecting the firewall's performance. So with Firewall Analyzer, Jim can rectify these anomalies, reduce the overly permissive rules, and fine-tune the existing rule set. So Firewall Analyzer can identify the following rule anomalies. So shadowing, redundancy, generalization, correlation, and grouping. So what are these anomalies? A detailed example of these anomalies is provided here in the presentation. And don't worry, we'll share this presentation with you after this training, so you can go through this again and have a clear picture. So for this demonstration, let me again take you to our product. But this time I'm going to take you to our online demo setup that is available for everyone to try Firewall Analyzer's features. So you can always go to demo.fwanalyzer.com and try out all the Firewall Analyzer's features. So here, to access policy optimization under rule management, we're going to go to optimization. We'll give it a minute to load. Yes. And then we are going to select a device. Again, I'm going to choose a FortiGate device. So here you can choose a specific device, and in the product UI, you can view these anomalies in a pie chart and its corresponding list. So to have a detailed view of any particular anomaly, just click on it and you can see the underlying data. So here Jim can have, give me a second. So here, let me check. Yes. So here Jim can have access to a lot of details like the source, destination, interface details, and what is the description and what action has been allowed about that particular anomaly or a rule. And the next feature we have is the rule suggestion feature. So this feature helps Jim by generating suggestions for overly permissive rules. So if I click on this report, Yes, you can see all the overly permissive rules. So Jim can take appropriate action to mitigate overly permissive rules that might pose security risk. So again, moving forward, the next one we have is a policy fine-tune. So this policy fine-tuning fine-tune specific rules based on the insights from the actual traffic over a specified period of time. So you can choose a time as per your requirement. So let's say if I'm choosing last 30 days, and then I will have all the policy fine-tuning suggestions here. And then we have the objects usage. So this feature provides an overview of network and service objects used by firewalls based on syslogs. So here is a detailed report of it. Yes. So you can see all the top most used network projects and objects and the least used network objects. So when there's data, it will be shown here as graphs. You can also see the most used service objects and then unused network objects and unused service objects. You can also see the top 10, top 50 as per your requirements. And then we have the duplicate objects. For duplicate objects, let me take you to another product UI. So here under optimization, we'll go to duplicate objects. Yes. So here under optimization, when we choose duplicate objects, these duplicate objects can slow down the firewall, but this particular report will help Jim to identify such objects and fix issues. So that is pretty much about the optimization point of rule management. Now we are going back to the presentation. Now we have the rule reorder feature. So with multiple admins writing rules, they may not be optimally arranged. For example, if a frequently used rule is positioned far down in the list, it will slow down the firewall's processing. So let me explain this again with an example. So let me take you to the product. Yes. So under reorder, so I'm going to choose for ticket, and here you can see the reorder report. So this suggests changes to move rules from their current position to a better position in order to improve performance. So we can also see the position of the rules before it was rearranged in the complete changes tab. So you will always have a record of all the rule changes that has been happening. And then we finally have the rule cleanup report. So here, Jim can identify unused rules, objects, interfaces. These unused rules could be exploited by skilled hackers. So with the help of the rule cleanup report, Jim can deactivate these unused rules, ensure they have no impact on the network, and safely remove them if that is necessary. So that is pretty much about the cleanup report. And let me take you back to the presentation. All right, so next we're going to look at the rule cleanup report is what we just spoke about. And the next one is a rule impact analysis, which is an important feature of rule management. So the question here is, why do we need a rule impact analysis? So here's the thing, before you add any rule, it is difficult to know the impact it will have on your entire existing rule set. So firewall rules are not typically independent from each other. And in fact, most rules have a direct impact on a set of other rules. So given this case, we must take utmost caution before adding a new rule to the existing firewall rules, because the simplest error can trigger a massive security loophole that can either allow malicious traffic to sneak in or can block a legitimate traffic. So with firewall rule impact analysis, you can easily determine if the proposed new rule is going to negatively impact the existing rule set. So for that, let me show this in working. Let me take you back to the product. So let's look at how Firewall Analyzer's rule impact analysis can be configured. So we go to the Impact tab. To add a new impact report, all you have to do is click on Impact Analysis. So once you do that, you have to enter the rule name, choose the position, source, destination, and all the other information that is on the screen. In case you have any blacklisted IPs, you can list them here. And if the list is long, you can simply make it into a file, browse and select it. Additionally, you can also examine the object repetitiveness for the selected number of rules. So once you've selected all the prerequisites and you hit generate report, you will get a report something like this. So let me show you a report. Yes, this is a rule impact analysis rule report. Here you can see that this report is split into several sections. The first section denotes the anomaly details. So for this particular report, we do not have an anomaly listed, but if we do have an anomaly found, that will be listed here. And then we have the rule reorder suggestion, overly permissive rules, security threat details, and then we have the blacklisted IP analysis, risky port info, and then finally we have the object repetitiveness in rules. So for all these, you will get a list of service and application level visibility. Finally, you get a list of the object repetitiveness with respect to both service objects and network objects in addition to other rules. So with this particular feature, even before you write any rule, you can check the impact of the new rule on your existing rule set. So this can save a lot of mishappenings by avoiding rules that could negatively affect the existing rule set. I hope the impact analysis report was clear. And next, we have the rule administration feature. So using the rule administration feature, you have the capability to add, modify, and delete network service objects or firewall rules directly on your firewall device. So initially, we only used to provide reports, but now we can also perform admin level functions, making these changes by ourselves. In addition to that, you can also analyze the implications of the change and push these changes directly to your firewall device. Let me explain this in the product UI. So again, going back to the product, under rule management, we'll go to the administration tab, where you have to choose the firewall device for which you want to populate the data. So for this particular demonstration, I'm choosing Palo Alto. Yes. So you'll see the first three tabs here, the network objects, the service objects, and the security rules. So under each of these three tabs, you can see two options, that is the local objects and the firewall objects. Local objects represent the changes you want to make in a specific firewall device. So this lets you add, delete, or modify network objects, service objects, or even security rules. So let me show you an example. Let me add. So for the local objects, let me add an object from here. So you'll just have to click on add. And then here you give the prerequisites. I'm just giving a sample requisite. And then choose a member. For now, I'm going with test server and I'm going to add it. So as you can see, the change doesn't directly get pushed to your firewall, but it will be immediately reflected in the local object section. And before proceeding, we will have multiple layers of security that will prevent unauthorized changes. So once you've populated the local object section, the next step is to review and push. So we go to the review and push tab, and you can see the local object that we just created being shown here. So here again, we'll just have to click on this and then push. And then we'll have an additional layer of authorization using your credentials. So once all of these are done, the changes will go directly to the commit section for the final review of the super admin. So here in the commit section, right now we haven't pushed it, but when we push it, we have it saved in the commit section for a final review. But what will happen if in the last minute you decide not to have that object added? So for that, we also have a revert option. So as you can see here for the FortiGate firewall, you can revert this particular change that you've made using the revert option, and all of these will be recorded in the commit audit tab. So in the commit audit tab, all the records will be recorded for future reference. And then finally, we have the rule approval feature. So the rule approval is a super admin level feature that allows only the super admin to approve or deny any change request made by the other firewall admins. So in this particular build, I just have the admin access. So let me again take you back to our free online demo setup. So here, we were under administration and we are under rule approval. So here you can see the dashboard. So this particular dashboard gives you an overview of pending, approved or rejected requests. As you can obviously see with different visual formats for easier understanding. You can also download this in various formats as per your convenience. So that is pretty much about the administration feature of Firewall Analyzer. Next, again, we are going to go back to the PPT. The next one is the rule tracking feature. So this feature will allow Jim to easily pinpoint changes made to the rule configuration by comparing two configuration files. So it can either be any two version of the configuration file, or it can be between a running configuration file and an offline configuration file. This feature will help them identify changes made to the firewall rules across various configuration versions. So let me show you how this works. So in the rule management section, we'll go to the tracking window. So let me go again to FortiGate, and I'm choosing the last 30 days. For example, any rule changes. Okay, let me check with checkpoint. Yes. So any rule changes made in the last 30 days will be listed here, showing details like the new additions, modifications, and deletions. You'll also get multiple graphs for easier understanding. So you can see the recent rule changes, user-specific changes, rule change trend, and the rule change report. So we also have a rule change history. Here the new additions, modifications, deletions will be listed for the particular time period that we have selected. And then we have the rule change alert. Here you can generate individual alerts for each rule change and receive notification through selected notification templates. So just click on add and then enter the required data. So select all the security rules that you need to be notified of, and then select a notification template. It can be a mail, chat, SMS, whatever. And then you can choose a program, and then you can choose a template, and then you can save it. So just like that, you will have a custom alert created for that particular rule change. So now to compare configuration files, so we'll select the compare policies, and you can choose whether you are comparing two configuration files, that is like two different offline files, or a configuration file that is an offline file with the latest running configuration, or between two already running configuration files. So let me take you to the presentation and show you how this report will look like. Yes, this is the policy comparison feature. As you can see, the comparisons are highlighted by color. So blue for modification, red for deletion, and green for new additions. So you can download this in multiple formats, just like the other reports, or have it sent to your email. And you can also see a diff only option here, which means this will help you filter out the rules that has just had the changes. So if you unclick the diff only option, you can see all the rules. So that is the comparison feature. So moving on, the next feature that we are going to look at is the rule expiry notification feature. So this helps the security admins track the status of firewall rules and get notified on which rules have expired already. So again, let me show you this in the UI. Yes. So we have the expiry notification here. It has all the schedules. You can see the active rules, the upcoming rules, expired rules, and also the recurring rules. So all these reports can again be scheduled to be sent to your email or downloaded in a report format as per your requirement. This feature will be particularly helpful to Jim to track the status of all the firewall rules. And in addition to the expiry notification feature, we also have a risk analysis feature. So this risk analysis feature helps you simplify, prioritize, and manage all your existing rule sets. So I'll explain how. So in the UI, in the summary tab, we go to the risk feature. And here you can see a summary tab where you can get an overall information about your firewall's risky rules. So it lists the rules based on severity, like critical, high, medium, or low. So what we are seeing is a live version of the risk report. So now we have seen both the impact analysis report and a risk analysis report. So there might be a question, how are they different from each other? So the difference is an impact analysis report lets you understand how a new rule will impact your existing rule set. However, in a risk analysis report, it analyzes the existing rules in your firewalls and identifies any risky or poorly structured rules that are currently running in the security setup. So again, in the next tab of rules, these rules can be listed in two ways. So one is the show by rule option is what we are currently seeing. And the next one is the show by risk option. This displays a risk section containing any risky rules. If you think any rule is actually harmless, you can exclude that rule from being calculated for the risk analysis report. So to do so, let me take a rule for example. Let me click on this particular rule and I'll mark as false positive. Sorry. I'll choose a rule and then I'll mark it as mark. So you have an alarm that is triggered that I have marked as false positive. And you can always look at this rule in the excluded rules list and they will not be considered for any future analysis. So that is pretty much about the risk analysis feature. Next, we have recently introduced an alert feature that triggers notification alerts when a threshold violation happens. Just like an alert that you might have heard now. You can create separate alert for each category, like the overview category, optimization, rule expiry, etc. In which, if a threshold is violated, you will be notified through a selected notification template. For the same thing, you can again add, click on add, choose all of the condition, priority, and then the time interval for the required device and get notified through your preferred notification profile. Either it is an email, SMS, or if you want it as a web alarm. Just click on it and click on save. Then you will have a custom alert profile created for that particular section of the rule management feature. With that concludes the fast use case of Jim, and he'll be successful in giving a full visibility of what is happening with the firewall rules. So going back to the PPT, we have the second use case. So this use case starts with monitoring the changes made to firewall configuration. The challenges are there were no previous records and Jim was not able to track the changes. There were no alerts or backup in Jim's old company. Now that Firewall Analyzer is in place, they want Jim to analyze, track, and record all changes made to the firewall configurations and also download these changes in a report format. So here is where Firewall Analyzer's change management report and configuration backup section can help resolve this issue. So as mentioned before, changes made to the firewall configurations by different security admins before Jim went unnoticed. But with Firewall Analyzer, that is not the case, because if an employee, say for example, let's take James for example, made a change to the firewall device, This change is automatically recorded. Firewall not only tracks who made the change, but it also tracks when the change was made and what was changed. So to show you how this change management works, let me take you back to the UI. Yes, this is the one. And under compliance, we'll go to change management. So here you will see a newly added dashboard displaying all the configuration changes. So let me choose a different firewall so that we have data to see. And then let's choose last 30 days. Okay, let me again check it with checkpoint. Yes. So here you will see a newly added dashboard displaying all the configuration changes made within the specified time frame. In our case, it is the last 30 days. It also allows us to view all the rule changes made for a specific firewall. Every change is listed here with details like the configuration count, version number, who made the change, and more. So if this needed to be analyzed in an offline format, you can again have it exported as PDF, sent mail, or schedule it on a regular interval. Now that we have looked at the change management feature, the next feature we look at is the configuration backup. So here under compliance again, we'll click on configuration backup. So with this particular feature, Jim's team and Jim can actually easily schedule automated configuration backups. If there have been any unsupervised modifications that are made, either due to an attack or a human error, they can revert the change using the backup option. So let me again, this is the product UI. So once you click it under the compliance for configuration backup, you can see all the schedules, and you can also see the backup audit tab. So from this, you can always have all the backups sent to your mail or download as and when it is required. And then we have an important feature, that is the comparison feature. So finally, you can compare any two backups using the compare feature. So this will allow you to see detailed comparison of the configuration rules. Say for example, you can either compare it by rules, or you can also compare it by the configurations. So for example, let me compare it by configuration for the Sophos firewall, and I am going to take say for example 7.5 with the latest configuration. Let's see if this has any difference in it. So once you click on compare, yes. So as you can see, all the addition, modification, and deletion will be listed, and those are color coded. So again, the similar way, diff only option is given, so you can only see all the modifications that were made. If you are going to distoggle it, you can see all the backup configuration files in the same list. So now Jim can analyze, track, and record all changes that are made to the firewall configurations, and he can also download these changes in a report format. With that brings us to the end of the second use case. So with that, we are ending the second use case. So this is what we just saw: who did the change, when was it done, and what was changed. And we also saw the comparing configuration side by side and a historical change report. And we also spoke about the configuration backup files. Now that we are here at the third use case. This company needs to be compliant with multiple security standards, but they are falling short on several, which has caused them to lose customers. So Jim has been assigned the task of submitting a detailed compliance and security audit report. So let's look at how Jim uses the compliance and security audit section of Firewall Analyzer to actually address this. So the standards and the compliance management feature of Firewall Analyzer does provide like a lot of out-of-the-box compliance standards for multiple regulations. So these are some of the regulations that we are already supporting. So let me take you back to the UI to explain this feature in working. So to access this, under compliance, let's go to the standards tab. So we are selecting a firewall that we want to generate reports for. As usual, I'm choosing FortiGate. Yes. So Firewall Analyzer will automatically generate these reports if sufficient data is available at no extra cost. So for example, say if Jim's company is a financial company, it is very important for them to be compliant with PCI DSS. So here, Firewall Analyzer has displayed the compliant status, that is, they are 56% compliant. And when Jim is going to click view mode, it will split the report into passed, failed, and manual verification required sections. So you can also filter out each section for your convenience if you just wanted to see what are the criteria that were passed for this particular compliance, or whatever was failed for this particular compliance. You can filter it out. And this particular tab also provides detailed recommendations on how to address the failed compliance areas. So if you scroll down, you can see suggestions on how to rectify these failed areas. So these are the past statuses. I think we need the failed ones. As you can see, here are the status of the failed ones, and you also have the section recommendation here. And in the same report, like Jim can just switch tabs to see how that particular firewall is compliant with other standards. For example, if he has to check for ISO, he just can do it in the same tab and in the similar format report. So it's easier for Jim to correct and his organization to be compliant. That is the sole purpose of having this standards report in Firewall Analyzer. So now going back to the presentation. Now let's look at the security audit report. Firewall Analyzer's security audit report helps identify configuration loopholes in your firewalls, listing events based on criticality. Either it is critical, high, low, or it is just an information. And it will provide detailed findings, the impact on the network, and will also suggest recommendation to prevent security incidents. So let me again show the security audit feature in working. So let me take you back to the product, and under compliance again, we are going to go to security audit. Here you can see the security audit for a particular firewall. Here we are going with FortiGate. In the security audit summary, first we have the security audit summary, and then we have the issues, listed. So for the FortiGate firewall, we have 0 critical issues, 5 high-rated issues, and then 4 medium-rated issues, and so on. So let's take a look at the high-rated issue. Yes, we have a high-rated issue here. So first, we have a general analysis of what this particular issue is about, and then we can see the list of affected rules, which is the reason why this has been classified as a high-risk alert. You can also see the repercussions of this particular issue and the suggestions that can be implemented to mitigate it. So you can always download this particular report in multiple formats, or also have it sent to your mail. So with this particular report, I think Jim can successfully finish his third task of submitting a detailed compliance and security audit report. So I'll bring you back to the PPT. So now that we all have a better understanding of how what Firewall Analyzer is capable of, and there is more coming up in the next session on May 15th. So this pretty much brings me to the end of the session. To summarize, Firewall Analyzer is a policy and configuration management tool. It helps identify policy anomalies, unused rules and objects, and it lets you perform in-depth impact analysis, just like we saw. And it also helps push policy changes directly to your firewall through the rule administration feature. Thus, it plays a critical role in optimizing firewall performance. So in addition to this, we also get out-of-the-box compliance reports, and Firewall also helps monitor the configuration changes and schedule configuration backups, and it also supports all major firewall vendors. So saying that, we have technology partnerships with Checkpoint, Palo Alto, and WatchGuard, and we are actively working on expanding this list. So currently we support more than 50 firewall vendors and over 200 devices, and this list is constantly expanding. And if you are using a firewall device which is not on this list, and if you want to know the details, kindly use the Q&A box and let us know. We will mail it to you personally. And you can always check the vendors and the devices we support on our online web pages. But if you're having any difficulty finding them, do not worry, we'll be sharing that information through email after this session. So next on this slide, we have the basic information on how to contact us. So you can reach us through email at fwaanalyzer-support@manageengine.com, or if you wish to talk to us, you can call the number as shown on the screen. In addition to that, we have a forum where network admins discuss their issues and our technicians answer them. This is called Pitstop, and it is available at pitstop.manageengine.com. It is common for all the ManageEngine products, but under the Firewall Analyzer section, you can see the relevant discussions happening. Finally, we also have an exhaustive help documentation on our website. If there is a feature you want to know more about or want to understand in depth, you can always look us up at help/index.html under Firewall Analyzer. I think most of your questions would have been answered by now, but if you still have any questions, this is a gentle reminder for you to simply type your questions in the Q&A section, and we'll have them answered right away by our panelists. So we'll also be sharing this particular presentation post this training. So you'll have all of this information in your email. So next one is, if you are an evaluator or an existing customer who has tuned in to see what are the new features that were released in Firewall Analyzer, we want to remind you that we are listed on Z2. I request you to share your feedback about the product on Z2. And as a token of thank you for your time and effort, we will be giving you a $25 gift card. So as an addition to all of this, we have a couple of ebooks. So one of our best ebooks that has benefited many admins globally is a Firewall Best Practices ebook. It is available on our website free of charge, and you can download it from firewall/ebooks.html. I'll also include a link to download all of these ebooks in the mail post this session. So next, we have a disclaimer regarding security, which is very important. With respect to customer security and data protection, ManageEngine assures you that we take customer security and data privacy very seriously. We make sure that all customer data stays protected at all costs. Finally, for the last bit, here is a quick sneak peek into what our next session on May 15th is about. So there we'll discuss about alarm management, network security and traffic reports, VPN monitoring, user monitoring, and forensic log analysis. So if you are someone who is curious about the insights on VPN management and other features, or want to collect relevant collaterals, don't forget to join us on our next session scheduled on May 15th. So with that, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this training was useful and that you have known something new.